This is the gist of the poem that finally death itself dies, which has been cruel in itself, finally dies. What is the introduction of the poem? It is to be kept in our mind. Donne's poem entitled Death Be Not Proud is a sonnet. This is a sonnet. The sonnet appears in Holy Sonnets Divine Meditations, and this is sonnet number 10 in this volume. In this poem, Donne speaks of death as if it were a person with whom it is possible to argue about how strong he actually is. This is an example of the method of treating an abstract force or quality as if it were a person. It is called personification. So keep this fact in your mind. This is a term like sonnet and other terms prescribed in your course. So when a person with whom it is possible to argue about how strong he actually is, and this is the best example the poets use in their poems. Donne demolishes two popular concepts. There are two popular concepts which have been mixed up in this poem. Firstly, death is dreadful. As we all know, death is fearful. The moment we talk of death, there comes a fear, a terrible fear, a horrible fear. And secondly, death is mighty. No one can win death. Death is inevitable. He personifies death and addresses him directly. This is the superb quality of Donne as a poet, that he has been addressing death and directly addressing. The structure of the poem facilitates the division of the theme into two parts. The octave proves that death is neither dreadful nor mighty. The sestet brings the argument to a personal level and regards death as a slave and a door through which the soul passes to immortality. The last line hints the nail on the head. It is not the poet who will die. The poet declares happily, Death, thou shalt die. This is the important line. So, death dies. So, friends, now I come to the paraphrasing part of the poem, and justly I give you a paraphrasing of first six lines. So, before I give you that paraphrasing, I read out the first lines. Death be not proud, thou, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou think'st thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, or yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy picture be, much pleasure, then from thee much more must flow. And soonest out best men with thee go. This is the first part, the sestate part. Now I give you the paraphrasing of this part. Or that. Do not be proud. Don't have pride. You are not supposed to have pride. You are not powerful or horrible as some think. Those whom you are supposed to destroy are not that in reality. You cannot kill me either. Death is like a restful sleep. People derive relaxation and joy from death, which is but a picture of death. Similarly, death gives greater comfort and rest. That is the reason why the best and virtuous people die young. Death frees their souls from the prison of their bodies and offers rest to them. As such, death cannot be called dreadful. Death is slave or agent of fate, accident, power, of kings and criminals. It accomplishes its task through poison, war, and sickness. Opium and other drugs can induce better sleep and more easily and in a gentle manner. They are more welcome than the blow of death. Why do you or that feel so proud of yourself? That can make us sleep for a short period in the grave. Thereafter we shall live eternally in heaven. We will wake up not in this life, but in eternity. Then is here referring to the Christian belief about the day of judgment, that is also called the doomsday, when all bodies from their graves come out and they are supposed to be before God for the final decision, for the final judgment, as per their actions which they carried out in their lives, whether the actions were good or bad. If the actions carried out by creatures, God will give them the you know the reward of heaven. Otherwise, God will give them the punishment of sending them to hell. Death then will have no power over us. In fact, death does not kill us. We become independent of death. It is death which itself dies. Death shall be no more, because in heaven and hell no one dies. This is important. Death is here. Death is confined only to earth. Death cannot live neither in heaven nor in hell. So this is the paraphrasing part. So the first part, the poet says that death shouldn't feel proud over the idea that she is very powerful and terrible. Death is not that shouldn't think like this, that she is powerful and terrible. There is no doubt that some people call him to be mighty and dreadful. In reality, death is neither powerful nor terrible. The poet gives sound argument in support of his ideas. Death thinks that she kills certain persons who die. This is, however, not true. Death can destroy only their bodies. This is very important. Death is confined only to our bodies, not to our soul, not to our spirit. It cannot kill us, it can kill only body. But she has no power over their souls. The soul is immortal. The same faith prevails in Christianity, just as the same faith prevails in Hinduism and other creeds in Eastern cultures and civilization. Souls have been considered to be immortal. Souls never die. And when soul cannot die, there could be no fear of death, because it is only body which happens to be absent. Body is the medium between God and soul. The soul is immortal, it never perishes. Soul is not perishable. The poet challenges death and says that she cannot destroy him. Death is wretched and insignificant. He says that rest and sleep, which resembles her closely, give pleasure to the people. Death's duration is longer, while their duration is shorter. The poet therefore concludes that death must give people more enjoyment. The poet says that there is no need of considering death powerful or fearful. Lastly, those persons who are the greatest and the noblest die at a young age. This is a very famous situation, a very hard reality of life. There's the noble persons die at a young age. This gives rest to their bodies and sets their souls free from the prison house of body in order to attain eternal bliss. Thus, the poet gives two arguments to prove that death is neither powerful nor dreadful. Death does not really kill. Death wrongly thinks that it kills. Then feels almost sorry for death in its failure. This is expressed by the expression poor death. You saw the poet uses the phrase for death, poor death, which is helpless, hopeless. Death is not dreadful. Dying is just like rest and sleep, which gives pleasure. The poet compares death to rest and sleep, just as we feel pleasure in resting, in sleeping. In the same way, when we are dead, we feel a sort of spiritual rest and pleasure. Death is longer rest and longer sleep. Then dying must be even more pleasant than resting or sleeping. Death frees the soul from the prison house of the body. Thus, the poet proves that death is neither dreadful nor mighty. So, this is a very, very thought provoking and evoking sonnet on death.